Welcome to It's Fact TV. Today, we're diving headfirst into the wacky world of prison escapes gone wrong. You know, those moments where you just have to laugh and say, what were they thinking? We're talking about the masterminds who thought they could outsmart the system but ended up tripping over their own shoelaces, metaphorically speaking, of course. Buckle up for some jaw-dropping stories of stupidity and misfortune. These are the stories that make you wonder if some criminals are really masterminds or just characters from a Looney Tunes cartoon. From digging tunnels that lead to nowhere to disguises that wouldn't fool a toddler, these escape attempts are so hilariously bad, they're actually kind of amazing. So, grab your snacks, get comfy, and prepare to be entertained by the most epic prison escape fails of all time. Our first tale of escape artistry gone wrong takes us deep underground, where inmates chipped away at freedom one spoonful at a time. For months they toiled in secret, their whispers muffled by cell walls, dreaming of fresh air and maybe a decent plate of nachos. They envisioned themselves as stars of their own Prison Break movie. They imagined emerging triumphant and free, blinking in the sunlight. But there was one tiny miscalculation. They misjudged their location. Instead of the forest, they emerged right in the middle of the prison yard. Can you picture the guards' faces? Shock, disbelief, and a healthy dose of, "Are you kidding me?" The inmates, covered in dirt, looked around and thought, well, this is awkward. Next up, we have a story that proves that not all criminals are criminal masterminds. This escape attempt involved a disguise so bad, it makes you wonder if they even tried. We're talking about a level of I'm never gonna see you again. So why not kind of effort? This cunning mastermind decided to walk right out the front door, using a fake ID. Now I'm not talking about a high-quality forgery here. This wasn't some catch-me-if-you-can operation. No, this ID looked like it was designed by a 5-year-old with crayons. I'm talking a blurry picture, a name that sounded like it belonged to a character from a bad spy movie, and a birth date that claimed he was old enough to remember when dinosaurs roamed the earth. It was like he printed it out on his lunch break. And the best part, he actually thought it would work. He saunters up to the guard, flashes this masterpiece of deception, and waits for the gates of freedom to swing open. For this next story, we're trading in our shovels for screwdrivers as we climb into the claustrophobia-inducing world of air ducts. These resourceful fellas thought they'd found the perfect escape route, the ventilation system. They probably watched Die Hard one too many times and thought, Bruce Willis made it look easy. Spoiler alert, much harder than it looks. They squeezed into the cramped, dusty confines of the ventilation shaft. They probably pictured themselves emerging, covered in dust but victorious. But reality had other plans. Navigating the labyrinthine network of ducts was more complicated than anticipated. Turns out, air ducts weren't designed for leisurely strolls. They're cramped, dark, and full of dust. So there they were, stuck between a vent and a very embarrassing situation. Chapter 4. The laundry cart caper that didn't quite clean up. Have you ever noticed how prisons always seem to have mountains of laundry? Well, our next group of escapees sure did. They figured, hey, everyone's too busy washing dirty socks to notice a couple of extra bodies in the laundry cart, right?
Wrong. These guys clearly underestimated the keen sense of smell of a prison guard who's been on laundry duty one too many times.
They probably thought they were being slick, hiding under piles of dirty uniforms, dreaming of the sweet smell of freedom, or at least the slightly less offensive smell of fresh laundry. They envisioned themselves being wheeled out of there, past the guards, past the fences, and into the waiting arms of, well, probably nobody was waiting for them, but you get the idea.
But their dreams of a clean getaway quickly went south faster than a pair of white socks and a load of reds.
You see, what they didn't factor into their ingenious plan was the element of surprise, or, more specifically, the lack thereof. Just as they were about to be wheeled past the final checkpoint, a guard decided to do a routine check. Chapter 5. Helicopter hijinks and other flying fiascos. Now, for all you action movie buffs out there, this next story might sound like a scene straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, except it's less The Rock and more the birdcage.
Picture this, a daring helicopter escape attempt. The tension is palpable, the rotors are whirring, and our escapees are clinging to the skids for dear life. Or at least they would be if the helicopter could actually get off the ground.
You see, in their haste to plan the most epic prison break since, well, ever, they may have overlooked one tiny detail, finding a pilot who wasn't, shall we say, past their prime. This wasn't exactly Maverick from Top Gun we're talking about. This pilot was more like a retired bus driver who'd taken a wrong turn and ended up at the local airfield. He was probably more accustomed to navigating rush hour traffic than evading prison searchlights. Chapter 6. Disguised debacles. You can't be serious. They say that clothes make the man, but in the case of our next escape attempt, they made the man look absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about disguises so bad, they could clear a room faster than a skunk in a spacesuit. These weren't your subtle, blend-into-the-crowd kind of disguises. No, these were the kind of get-ups that screamed, "Look at me! I'm definitely not a criminal trying to escape from prison." We're talking fake mustaches that looked like they were glued on by a blindfolded toddler, wigs that would make a clown blush, and sunglasses so big they could double as satellite dishes. One guy even tried to disguise himself as a woman, which would have been almost believable if it weren't for the 5 o'clock shadow he hadn't quite managed to cover up. He looked like he was trying out for a really low-budget remake of Mrs. Doubtfire. Ah, the age-old escape route, the sewer system. It's the getaway vehicle of choice for rats, cockroaches, and, well, desperate criminals who have watched one too many prison movies.
Our next group of escapees decided to channel their inner Andy Dufresne and make a break for it through the prison's plumbing system. They probably imagined themselves emerging from the sewers, triumphant and covered in, well, let's not go there.
They chipped away at the concrete, brick by brick, flush by agonizingly slow flush, until they had finally carved out what they thought was their ticket to freedom. Little did they know, their tunnel of hope was about to become a cesspool of despair.
You see, what our intrepid plumbers hadn't quite anticipated was the fact that sewage systems are not exactly designed for scenic strolls. They're dark, they're smelly, and they're full of things you really don't want to think about, let alone swim in.
Some escape attempts are elaborate, others are downright ridiculous, and then there are those that make you shake your head and wonder, did they even bother to measure? This next story falls squarely into the latter category.
Our protagonist in this tale of escape gone wrong decided to take the direct approach. He was going to climb out the window and into the waiting arms of freedom. Simple, right?
Well, there was just one tiny problem. The window was about the size of a postage stamp. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but not by much. This window was small, like comically small, like, how did he even think he could fit through there? Small. It's like he was trying to squeeze a watermelon through a straw.
Undeterred by the laws of physics and common sense, our determined escape artist decided to give it a go. He lubed himself up, took a deep breath, and went for it.
And for a brief, shining moment, it almost seemed like he might actually pull it off. He managed to squeeze his head and shoulders through the impossibly small opening, but then, disaster struck. For our next act, we're taking it outside, where one brave soul decided to test his mettle and his genes against the formidable opponent that is the prison fence. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a prison fence up close and personal, but let's just say they're not exactly designed for easy climbing. They're tall, they're imposing, and they're usually topped with enough barbed wire to make a porcupine jealous.
But our fearless fence jumper was undeterred. He'd been practicing his parkour moves, or at least what he considered to be parkour moves, in the prison yard, and he was feeling confident. He figured he could just channel his inner ninja warrior, leap over that fence, and disappear into the night.
He took a running start, his eyes on the prize, his heart pounding in his chest. He planted his foot, launched himself into the air. And for our final act of escape artistry gone wrong, we have a story that proves that sometimes the simplest plans are the most likely to backfire. We're talking about a classic escape tool, the ladder. Now, you'd think that something as straightforward as a ladder would be pretty foolproof, right? Well, our next escapee clearly missed the memo on that one.
He'd managed to cobble together a makeshift ladder out of bed sheets, mop handles, and sheer determination. He envisioned himself scaling the prison wall under the cover of darkness, disappearing into the night and leaving his troubles behind. He probably even practiced his "I'm free" yell in the privacy of his cell.
With his heart pounding in his chest, he hoisted his makeshift ladder against the wall and began to climb. He was so close to freedom he could almost taste it. Thanks for watching It's Fact TV. We hope you enjoyed this hilarious journey into the world of prison escape fails. Remember kids, crime doesn't pay, and neither do poorly planned escape attempts. If you enjoyed these wild stories of criminal blunders, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more incredible content, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We'll be back soon with more amazing stories, unbelievable facts, and maybe even a few more prison escape fails. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, always measure twice.